The boundaries which divide life from death are at best shadowy and vague. Who shall say where the one ends and where the other begins? The Premature Burial by Edgar Allan Poe.
Good evening, Undertakers, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Empty Casket Podcast. I am Tanya Gilroy, and this is Bill Bryan.
In tonight's first episode, we'd like to give you the opportunity to get to know us a little bit. Get to know our paranormal group, Empty Casket Paranormal, and get to know our podcast and what we expect from it, and some of our plans for upcoming episodes. Tanya and I are the co-founders of Empty Casket Paranormal, which is a paranormal investigative group that we decided to start after a trip to Gettysburg in October of 2020. During that trip, we had some profound experiences and some interesting things happened to us, and we wanted to dive deeper into it. So on the ride home from Gettysburg, we were talking, and the idea of starting a paranormal group kind of came into fruition. Having a separate group gave us a little bit more legitimacy than just going off on our own, and allowed us to more easily bring in other people to investigate with and to peruse the high strangeness and unsolved mysteries that we seem so fascinated with.
That's true. I think a lot of it stemmed from just us having a passion for these subjects and the conversations we had before going to Gettysburg, the conversations we had during Gettysburg. Even prepping for Gettysburg, Bill was already creating the REM pods and modifying equipment.
Well, the coffin pods.
The coffin pods.
I made my own. They're inside a coffin.
Well, they weren't a coffin then.
No, that's right. That was a prototype.
That was a prototype.
Yeah, that was in a piece of Tupperware.
So
now
it was Tupperware pods. But I think that it was just all building up to that being the inevitable end result, is that we were going to eventually create our own paranormal group. It was nothing that we planned out from the beginning. It really just all the pieces just kind of fell and synchronized beautifully. And I think seeing how we worked as a team in Gettysburg, and we didn't have huge experiences, but how we worked together.
They were profound enough to really drive us forward.
They were profound enough to do that. But I think also it showed how we worked as a team, how we read off each other, how you knew if I needed assistance, I knew if you needed assistance. We kind of had the same ideas on how to approach things. So it felt really comfortable.
Yeah, we really learned on that trip that we kind of synced up with the paranormal stuff especially.
Mm-hmm.
And so making a paranormal investigative group just seemed like the logical next step. And that continued, our in sync continued in December of 2020 when I was leaving your house, and I just had this thought that, hey, you know what? We have all these conversations. Why not record them, use it as a log for our investigations, and to have these conversations about all this weird stuff and just do it as a podcast? I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I didn't tell you about that until the next night when you came over, and
I'm like, I think we should do a podcast. We listened to enough of them.
Yeah, it was weird. We just had the same thought independently, and that's what we decided to do.
And our goal is not, we're not doing this for fame or anything like that. We actually just want to do this to get our thoughts out there and to try to find other people who have similar interests. We want to gather information from everybody. We want to start building connections with people who have had experiences or who are already, into investigations. So we can all kind of see, feed off each other and see if there's connections and see if there's things that we're all experiencing the same way.
And on top of all that, I have a degree in electrical engineering and have worked as an electromagnetics engineer. And so coming from that highly scientific background, I see some shortcomings in the scientific method that they use in the ghost hunting shows, and I kind of want to correct that, or at least attempt to. And on top of that, designing and building some of our equipment has been actually kind of fun, and I'm enjoying doing that. And so we've developed some methodologies, things like having forms that we fill out before investigations to track people's mental and physical wellness. We use some non-standard ghost hunting equipment to collect more data. And we'll probably do a show later on where we go more in depth with our methodologies and our equipment. But that's going to get a little bit geeky, so we'll save that for a whole episode on its own.
I think what we're doing basically is we are not only are we learning from other people and other investigators, we're taking a little bit of what they do and kind of making it our own. We really want to try to keep it on a scientific level as possible. That's why we want to fill out forms that track things like our physical well-being, our mental well-being, external and internal factors, and how it may affect what we are going to experience. And we feel that that's very important going into this.
It'll help us determine any correlations between how you feel and what happens to you. You see that now with the ghost hunting shows that they say if you're feeling more vulnerable and all that, we're just going to track it in a more consistent manner rather than just relying on memory and all that.
And I think our main objective is that we're trying not to go in it feeding off of so much emotion. We're trying to go in it with stable minds and truly looking to see if we can gather real information, not basing it off of our own emotion at that time. Because, of course, we're going to be excited and anticipating. So we don't want to think every little bump and creak and odd noise is something paranormal.
And we think doing this podcast is going to help us a lot with that, because it'll force us to look at things more rationally and explain things and dive into some of the stuff we experience to present it to you in such a way that you can hear it and see it and it's experience what we experienced, and that'll help us to help figure out what's going on.
And for us to get feedback too.
Oh yeah.
We want to get feedback from other people. So with that said, what does our future hold, Bill?
So some of the episode ideas we have coming up. Well, for one, Gettysburg. That's why we haven't really talked too much about it. We kind of glossed over a lot that we did there. We plan on doing a full episode on what we did in Gettysburg, what we encountered. And we have several different events lined up over the next couple months that we will be doing episodes on. First of which is on February 19th, we are going to be investigating the Theater of the North, which is the old North Scranton Junior High School in Scranton, Pennsylvania. This is one I'm quite excited for. My elementary school was half a block away from here. This is a building I've wanted to get inside since I was a kid. My father went to junior high there. It's being hosted by the Wyoming Valley Ghost Tours, and the following is a little excerpt from their website about the Theater of the North. This historic landmark was built between 1922 and 1924 in a late Gothic revival style, featuring a 4-story clock tower, and is on the National Register of Historic Places. The building served as a junior high school until its closure in 1987. In 2015, Goodwill Industries of northeastern Pennsylvania fully renovated this historic landmark into 58 senior living units. The building was aptly renamed Goodwill at North, Gerald T. Langang Apartments. In the heart of the building lies the majestic Theater at North, a fully restored and renovated 800-seat performing arts theater. Now, to my knowledge, there are currently nobody living in those senior living units, and I don't believe the performing arts theater is currently being used. We'll find out on February 19th when we get to go there.
And I don't think that you're able to dig up any information on how it may be haunted or...
No, even though I grew up not too far from there, I had never heard stories of it being haunted. My father, like I said, my father went there, and he never mentioned anything about it possibly being haunted. But it's still interesting nonetheless, and it's a building I've wanted to get into for a long time, so it'll be a good way to start honing our skills.
And it's something that we talked about before, was that, sometimes you go into something with too much information, and this is our opportunity to kind of go in blind.
Yeah. We
really don't know the background of why this is supposedly haunted or what has gone on. So we're going to be going in there with no knowledge aside from the little history that, Bill was able to get on it. So that's going to kind of be interesting, because now we kind of get this, we're not going in there with any preconceived ideas.
Right. And this is going to be a shorter ghost hunt. I believe it's 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. It's like history and
a tour.
And then a tour.
And then we actually get to investigate.
So next, on March 19th, we are heading to Warwick, New York, to visit the Mid-Orange Correctional Facility in former reformatory. This one is hosted by the Ghost Hunts USA, and this was actually a birthday gift from me to Bill. But due to COVID, we were originally supposed to go,
December 4th.
December 4th.
My birthday is not December 4th. No. That's just when
it was. But it was an early gift. But then with COVID, it got canceled. And so we are now going in March. Here's a little excerpt from, I guess, did you get that from their website?
I did, yes.
Okay. The haunted Mid-Orange Correctional and Former Reformatory is an absolute must for every ghost hunter. Our overnight ghost hunts at this location have yielded some of the most amazing paranormal activity that we have ever witnessed. Its daunting dark energy is foreboding in the death of night and has left many of our guests speechless. The mysterious secrets of Mid-Orange will leave a lasting impression on anyone that dares to investigate it long enough. Are you going to be brave enough to follow the ghostly shadows that enter the tunnel system? Or will you take consort in one of the dark and ominous housing units? And this is pretty cool because we did watch an episode on this.
It was Ghost Nation, I believe, did this one. It was last May, I believe. May of 2020.
Because I remember once I gave you the gift and you pulled it up. So we were kind of trying to see what we're heading into. And it was pretty cool. Like, they have a whole system, a network of tunnels that you can basically get lost in.
Yeah, and I believe that the main building we're investigating, which is the main building on the property, they've been trying to renovate it into a children's sports center.
Camp.
A soccer
camp, yeah.
But they haven't been able to get any contractors willing to work in there long enough to actually do the work. Mm-hmm. So they've started opening it up to ghost hunters.
Which is in our favor.
Yes. This was by far one of the best birthday gifts I've ever gotten. I'm so excited to do this.
And this is going to be an overnight stay. So I believe we get there around 7, 8 o'clock. And then it ends around
3 or 4 a.m.
3 or 4 a.m. So we will actually get some pretty good, time in there. And I've never done one of these before. I don't know how this company runs it. So that's kind of brand new to us. But still exciting. we're hoping that we kind of get individual time to kind of go off on our own and see what we can find.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. One of the benefits, though, of this being pushed due to COVID was Tanya had gotten a voucher to be used at a different ghost hunt, and that's when we rescheduled it. But it just so happened to fall into their little Christmas coupon, or maybe it was Black Friday coupon.
Yeah, it was like Black Friday.
So we were able to get a second trip from this group, Ghost Hunts USA, this time in Fieldsboro, New Jersey, to the White Hill Mansion. Now, I don't believe I've seen this one on any of the ghost hunting shows, and I'm not very familiar with the history of it. However, I do have this excerpt from their website. The haunted White Hill Mansion is an absolute paranormal haven. With over 300 years of history, the paranormal energy that is still embedded within its walls will not disappoint. Our overnight ghost hunt at this location have yielded some of the best paranormal activity we have ever witnessed. With many rumors of links to the mafia, is it these spirits that still haunt this formidable location? How long will you be able to spend in the speakeasy? Well, I plan on spending all night there.
And this one we're actually going on, it's not just Bill and I, it's going to be with my son Quaylen as well. He's one of our investigators, and this is going to actually be his first authentic investigation.
Right, we've done some little investigations with him and your daughter at your house.
Yes. Practice runs. But Quaylen is quite gifted at being able to ask questions that seem to always get responses. Yes. He's very articulate, and for some reason he's able to he doesn't just ask yes and no questions. He actually is able to, I don't know, have a conversation, I guess, is the best way,
It just comes so naturally to him.
It does.
I'm very curious to see what happens when we get him into a really haunted place.
Definitely.
And this trip is in April, mid-April. So we're planning on doing a episode on that.
And then sometime, hopefully in the summer, we are not investigating ghosts. We are going to try to contact UFOs.
This is going to be fun.
It's called The Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, and we just watched a documentary on it, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. UFOs and alien legends and lore have really been part of my life since childhood. My grandmother was a big time alien believer, and always, saying she hopes they come down and take her. So, of course,
you say that too.
I say that too. I am absolutely willing and 100% terrified of that ever occurring. But I've always been a huge believer of aliens. I am skeptical on a lot of things. I don't even know where I fall in religious-wise. But I truly believe that we are not alone in this universe. And that there is some type of extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional being that either reigns over us or has been protecting us or watching us, or however you want to put it, or, there's something.
Or Earth is just a zoo for the aliens, and they can like to come down and watch.
Which is a story Izzy just read recently.
Well.
Of exactly that.
So the CE5 event that we're planning on doing is a methodology developed by Dr. Stephen Greer.
Mm-hmm.
He believes that the aliens are able to transport themselves very quickly and to be able to do things via consciousness. And that by doing special meditations, you can actually call the aliens to you. Yeah.
And I have the book, which I am only now starting to research. But that's basically what it is. It's learning how to hone in on thoughts and calling out to the universe and bringing forth, you know, a possible UFO. And it does state that, you know, the more you have in your group that are all concentrating on this phenomenon, the higher chances you have of summoning one.
I believe it also said that it sometimes takes 3 to 5 sessions before you see something.
So there's going to be a lot of practice.
Right. And once we have a few sessions under our belt, we'll do a more in-depth podcast about the methodology and our results.
And the good thing is, just browsing through it, the book I got is called, and I'm pulling it up right now because I don't even know it, CE5 Handbook, an easy guide to help you contact extraterrestrial life. And just by browsing through it, it is, if you take away the aliens and just look at it as is, it's a very informative book. The meditations alone are something I totally recommend. It's just teaching you how to ground yourself, how to truly put your mind into a calm state, and to, you know, get in touch with yourself and totally, you know, take away the stress. So that's something that we are going to be learning, and hopefully we get to actually go out and try to successfully call down some aliens.
I'm both looking forward to this and absolutely terrified. As a child, my biggest fear was being abducted by aliens. So I'm really excited to do this. I'm also kind of scared to do this.
I am scared too. But I don't know. I'm scared of ghosts too. I won't go down my basement by myself. I'm terrified.
Well, your basement's kind of freaky.
But, you know, now I'm willing to go in a dark tunnel.
So in addition to our ghost hunting schedule and our attempts to contact extraterrestrials, we're also going to be trying something that I've recently been getting very into, and that is Bigfoot hunting. Apparently, Pennsylvania has the third most number of Bigfoot sightings out of anywhere else in the country, which is quite shocking to me. And when I looked up some of the Bigfoot sightings, there are several sightings that have taken place in places that I like to hike. There was a Bigfoot sighting just a couple miles from my hunting lease. There was a Bigfoot sighting just a few miles from your house. So I thought, well, why not go try to find Bigfoot? Worst case scenario, we get some nice hikes in.
Oh, and we definitely love to hike. I'm not saying that I'm not a big fan of Bigfoot. I believe in it. Well, I'm open to the possibility of it being something, I should say. Bigfoot was never really on my top. So.
Yeah, Bigfoot was never something that I really believed in until the Astonishing Legends Bigfoot episodes, specifically their Patterson Gimlin film. It is 6 episodes totaling about 13 hours in which they dive very, very deep into it. And after those 13 hours, I walked away believing in Bigfoot.
I would totally say, though, that what appeals to me about the Bigfoot is the legends behind it, the history, many cultures all across the world, especially ones deep in like a native roots, have stories of these types of creatures.
Whether they be large ape-like hominids or wild men, or you get them in Australia and obviously in the Himalayan mountains. And yes, that is the correct way to pronounce it. I just got done listening to a podcast about the Yeti. They made a very big deal that it's pronounced Himalayan.
Himalayan.
But obviously you have the Yeti there, and then Bigfoot in North America. There's also quite a few wild man stories in South America and Africa.
And going off on the Bigfoot, we do love to hike a lot. And something that has been very passionate to me is the 411 cases. and the mysteries behind missing people getting totally disappearing in, national forest, and coming upon, their remains or lack thereof, and strange things that have been sighted in these forests. I was really diving deep into this right before meeting Bill, and that's when I really started learning about the connections between everything. And I have such a strong pull and desire to go into a national forest. I don't want to say I want to disappear, but I might want to disappear and see what happens.
In fact, when we started dating, one of the first things you told me is to make me promise that I would take you to national parks. Which technically I did when I took you to the Gettysburg National Military Park.
True. I also might have a small crush on David Paulides. I am totally fascinated by that guy.
So, at some point, we will be going to national parks. I don't know if we'll get to any this year, but we're certainly going to try. And even if we don't get to any, we'll definitely do a couple episodes on the missing 411 type mysteries.
And from, hearing about, our local area, there's been some cases of, people mysteriously disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
So we can always try to dig up some information, maybe even take a ride.
Well, it just so happens that one of the places that we do plan on going this year, which is the Cherry Springs National, not National Park, it's a state park. The Cherry Springs State Park here in central Pennsylvania is a place that we plan on going because in central Pennsylvania there's a lot of Bigfoot sightings. It is in the middle of the Pennsylvania State Forest, which is a huge, vast forest full of absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great place to go do the CE5 event because it is the darkest place in Pennsylvania, and you could actually see the Milky Way with your naked eyes. So we're planning on doing some hiking and camping there this year for sure.
Yes. I am totally looking forward to that.
We'll definitely let you know when we go. So if you don't have any more podcasts from us after that, we either got abducted by aliens, killed by Bigfoot, or went missing.
Or we gave up podcasting altogether.
Yeah, if we do that, we'll probably say goodbye first. I guess it depends on how many listeners we actually have.
The whole one, maybe.
Hey, one's more than we have right now.
I know, right? I won't even listen to us. Hopefully, though, in upcoming episodes, we are going to be more professional and more
prepared. This is kind of ad hoc. We kind of want to just talk about the episodes that we want to do, our Empty Casket, and about ourselves. And speaking about ourselves, we've talked a little bit about our Empty Casket Paranormal group, which I'm sure we'll do a more in-depth episode on with our techniques, our equipment, and all that. We've talked about the podcast and some of the things we have planned coming up. So let's talk about ourselves for a little bit. So I was born and raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Went to school at the University of Scranton. And at the time that I was in college, the show Ghost Hunters had just started. And around their second season, me and a bunch of friends realized that a lot of the equipment that they're using are stuff that we had in our physics and engineering labs. So we decided to, quote unquote, borrow it and go do some ghost hunting.
Borrow it.
So we formed a little ghost hunting group called Pwned. Paranormal Wonders and Neo-Ethereal Detectives.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah. We did some places around Scranton, including the West Mountain Sanatorium, which is no longer there.
Did you ever catch anything?
Cold. We went to Centralia, Pennsylvania, and we went to...
Which is almost not there anymore either.
Yeah, there's not much left there. And then we went to Gettysburg. This was my first trip to Gettysburg. One of the big things on that trip was we wanted to find Sachs Covered Bridge, which is a place that we did not find And I did not get to go to until about 10 years later when I took my brother to Gettysburg and we finally got to go there. But having done that, for most of the guys in the group, it was just an excuse to go out and have an adventure and have a little bit of fun. But for me, it sparked something a little bit deeper. I grew up in a house that was haunted. While I didn't have a whole lot of experiences in the house other than seeing an apparition once, my brother and sister, who were on the second floor, had many, many more encounters. They didn't ever seen anything, but they've had weird dreams in which they saw it. They heard noises and footsteps and voices. And neither one of them told anyone in the house about it until we were all adults. And it just came up in conversation one day, and it turns out everybody had seen or heard the same thing, and it was a little freaky. My interest in the paranormal from a young age just kept growing and growing, and that ghost hunting in college really just cemented it for me. So throughout the years, I've always tried to get into other paranormal groups, and most of them were either unresponsive or told me they weren't looking to take on anyone else. And so I ended up doing a lot of ghost hunting by myself. I went to Gettysburg multiple times, sometimes by myself, sometimes with my brother, once with you.
Yep.
And up until recently, Bigfoot was not on my radar, and aliens were something I avoided because of my childhood fears. But I always had an interest, and I was always reading about them, listening to podcasts, watching documentaries on all of this stuff. So I'm very excited to really be diving deep into this finally, and being able to, well, one, do it with you, and two, just to have someone who has the same passion that I have to go in and find answers.
Oh, I love you.
Love you too.
So, me. I'm just slightly older than him. So I have a few more years of, a year.
A year, yeah.
Year more experience, I guess. So I grew up in Plymouth, Pennsylvania, which isn't too far from Scranton. I have lived in the same house for 37 years. I was actually supposed to be born into that house, but I was a special baby, and I decided to come out ass first, and therefore was required to go to a hospital.
You're still a special baby.
I'm still a special baby. However, my house I definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, feel that house is haunted. And I've had experiences since I can remember. But growing up also, that was my, I guess, culture. My grandparents used to tell me ghost stories and fascinate me by all these strange and unusual things of the world. Like I said before, my grandmother was really into UFOs, but we were also into a lot of things. She was a hardcore watcher of unsolved mysteries. I do
love that show.
Yes, awesome show. She loved watching ghost stories and horror movies, and she got me into that stuff too. And my grandfather used to love telling me haunted history, and he knew our area very well. Our area is a coal mining area, and there were a lot of tragedies and a lot of things that happened, and he could go around town and around a lot of parts of Pennsylvania and tell me, the things that have happened or the strange things that occurred.
Speaking of coal mine disasters, one other area that we plan on investigating is the Avondale mine, which was a mining disaster, about 3 miles from your house?
Yeah, 3 miles from my house. But there's other things too. I mean, there's a lot of coal areas, like coal mining areas that have had some types of disasters, or but he also used to tell me stories about what he would see in our house too. As someone who grew up in that Depression era, I don't know if it's common amongst all of them, but in my town, it seemed like all the old men lived down in the basement. So my grandfather was one of them. He had kind of a little bunker down there. It was like going into a whole different world. And I spent so much of my childhood downstairs in the basement with my grandfather. And he used to tell me how he would see from time to time phantom stairs appear and boots walking down the stairs. And he would only ever see feet.
Wait, in your house?
Yeah, in my house.
Oh, you never told me that
I
before.
never told you that one?
No.
Boots well, he says that the boots would come down. Like, it wasn't near the staircase. It was on the opposite end of the basement. And he would see the stairs appear and the boots come down. Only the boots. There were about four stairs, and they would come down and then turn around and walk back up. Yeah. As for my mother, she was she still is very much into holistic healing. She was a big time believer in herbalism, all that hippie stuff, as my brother would say. She loved nature. She loves gardening and learning all the medicinal purposes of plants. And she was also fascinated by the history of witches and the magical aspects of that. So growing up, I don't think that she actually knew what she was believing in, but that's basically what we were doing, conjuring up our own little spells. We would go gather up our herbs and hang them and say little blessings over them. And she was the one who got me really into fairies and the fae beliefs. I remember one time I pulled a flower off of a plant, and she told me that the plant was now crying and I was going to get the fairies angry. And I was traumatized. I think from going forward, I did not pull plants. I didn't pull leaves. I didn't pull flowers. I left them alone.
Except for mushrooms.
Except for mushrooms. I hate mushrooms. But that's a whole story in its own.
We should definitely do an episode on fairies at some point.
Yes. But I will not kick down a fairy circle. That I won't touch. I do have my limits. So, growing up, it was just part of my natural childhood. Ghosts and all that stuff were just something that was just so common. It was in my books, my everything. What I watched on TV, everything kind of always was, it was incorporated somehow. And like I said before, it was nothing for me to, play around with the Ouija board or, find, different spells and stuff. And yes, looking back now in hindsight, that was dangerous. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was playing around, which could have probably conjured up a lot of bad stuff. But also,
maybe Timmy.
Yeah. Well, in going forward, when my kids were around, came into life and, started having their own experiences, they saw, perhaps, I think they were the only two that actually had encountered a full apparition, and it said it was Timmy, and he was a bad kid. And hopefully we can probably do a whole podcast on that one day too. Yeah. And their experiences. And I've had some bad experiences. I've had some frightening things happen to me. I also had some good things happen to me. One of my earliest recollections, I was in my room. I was a little kid, maybe about 3, and I used to have this collection of seashells that I would play around with. And I remember one day my grandmother called me downstairs for lunch, and I had my lunch. I come back upstairs, and here I find them in a pattern. They were like in a spiral shaped pattern. And little things like that. I've never actually seen anything, though. I never actually got to see a full apparition.
Which is odd, because everyone else has seen apparitions in your house.
Yes, they see me. They see me walking around. We call her Other Mother. The kids hear her all the time.
I think they're still hearing her.
The kids heard last night there was Q swore someone broke in last night. He thought I was still downstairs. He thought I came home at 5 o'clock and was watching TV and mocking the cats.
Wow.
So apparently there is my doppelganger walking around when I am not there.
Well, even I've had an experience in your house. After Christmas, we decided to renovate her son's room. And her son's room seems to be the epicenter of everything negative going on in your house. And so as we're doing it, everything went wrong. Whether it be things not, tools not working, or,
measurements just being a hair off, messing everything up.
Yeah. A few times we went to the hardware store, and something that they always have, they didn't have. We'd have to hit multiple hardware stores to get it. The one day you were at work, and I was over working on the room, and your mother came over to see if I was okay because I was yelling and screaming. And here I was yelling at whatever entity is in your house, telling it that come hell or high water, I'm going to finish that room. That it's not going to stop me. And it kept trying. The last straw was when we were putting the floor down. I was putting down the interlocking laminate floors. And there was 2 boards that just, no matter what I did, would not lock together. And I was getting really pissed. And this was after a full day of everything that could possibly go wrong, going wrong. Mm-hmm. So I asked you, well, I started yelling and you came up to see if I was all right.
That you hurt yourself.
And so I asked you if you had any sage, and you didn't. So I asked for cinnamon, which cinnamon works like sage, but it's not as powerful. So I smudged the entire room with cinnamon. As soon as I started doing that, I had my music playing, and the song that came on was Judith by A Perfect Circle. And I just stopped. I'm like, wow, nice touch, but you're still leaving. And I smudged the entire room. And after I did that, those same 2 pieces that would not lock together just fell right together and fit exactly the way they were supposed to. I didn't have a single problem the rest of the time I was working on that room. And so when we were finally done with it, I brought over some of my saged Quaylen's room, the hallway, and Izzy's room.
And yeah, I mean, I guess a skeptical mind can say we can chalk that up to just being a bad day.
It was a bad week.
My house is old. It's so old. And it needs so many repairs. But measurements are off. Nothing is as it seems. So, of course, we were expecting problems. But
the reach of the problems went far beyond what normally happens. Yes. I mean, I've been working construction my entire life. Problems happen. But the amount of problems we had in that 1 week in that one room, just way more than normally happen.
And that's true. And my house, the best way I can explain it is that you feel that there is a presence there. There's like a cloud, and it floats around. And some days the house is light and airy, and you're calm, and things are just normal. And then there's some days when you walk in and it feels like a ton of bricks just got placed on your shoulders, and you see every problem, and you're angry and mad, or you don't want to go into certain rooms. There's been plenty of times where I've opened my bedroom door and it just felt like I had 100 eyes on me, and I'm like, nope, I will come back later. And I would leave, come back later, and everything would be fine and back to normal again. I don't know what may be in my house. I don't know if it's just a combination of negative energy, or if there's actually a spirit there, or what. But all I know is it's been there since I can remember. And it's either gotten worse over times, and it's also decreased.
Well, I know that the first time I went to your second floor, as soon as I got to the top of the steps, my eyes were immediately drawn to Quaylen's room. That is dark corner of the
well,
hallway.
The hallway is, and both sides, my mom's side too, because I live in a double block, so my side is very similar to my mother's side. So the hallways have always been an issue.
Well, I didn't. So when I was on your side, and I looked in that dark corner that first time, my thoughts immediately went to something's not right here. There's something over there. I don't like this. On your mother's side, I don't get that.
I get on both sides. Mainly my side, though. I don't like the hallway. I don't like passing that area. I always watch that area. But also the porches, too. It's everything. The kitchen. I don't go downstairs in the basement by myself.
I don't like going in the basement by myself, but I seem to be doing it all the time. I'm not going to let whatever's in your house intimidate me. I've yelled at it several times, and there's a few instances where I thought maybe it might have came home with me just to kind of start messing with me.
I've had it only really scare the hell out of me twice, maybe 3 times. Once when I was a teenager, and that was perhaps my biggest, scariest event. Twice as an adult. But never to the point where, like, I live there now. It didn't scare me out.
Yeah.
I'd never actually seen anything, though. I have seen apparitions of animals. So the only time I've actually ever seen an apparition was of a cat. And I didn't have a cat at the time. I walked into the bathroom and I tripped over it. This cat curled up on my bath mat. And I laughed, and my ex-husband at the time said, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, I tripped over the cat, and then I stopped myself, and I'm like, wait a minute, we don't have a cat. And then when I looked down, there was nothing there. And me and my son saw the cat too. He was still little, and it ran by his bedroom, which is now Izzy's room. It used to be his bedroom. So that was the only times I actually ever seen something, an apparition. But it was only ever animals. But I think I've actually also told myself. I remember, I don't know when, but I do remember saying at one point, I don't want to see nothing, no person. I don't ever want to see a person, but I'm okay with seeing animals. So I don't know if I casted that out into the universe to where I'm now blinded by, human apparitions. I don't know.
Well, thankfully, the house I live in is not haunted. Although I did have that one thing in the house there for a little while. So a couple years ago, when I started dabbling around with the more spiritual side of things, such as Wicca and tarot and all that, which I still am heavily involved in. But one of the things I did was I made a black mirror, and I wanted to try some scrying. And I took all the proper precautions. However, at one point, I saw something move behind me, and it scared the hell out of me. So I immediately put the mirror away, cleansed the space, and went on with my day. Over the next month and a half to 2 months, out of the corner of my eye, whenever I was inside the house, I'd see a shadow figure. Sometimes it was formless, other times it had some shape. I seen it coming up and down their stairs several times. Never full on, it was always out of the corner of my eye. During that month and a half, 2 months, I was very unwell. During that time, my dogs got into a major fight and I got bit on both hands. Just as that healed, I got very sick it was either a very bad cold or mild flu. As soon as that healed, I tore the muscle in my neck, which that was not fun at all. And at that point, once I was able to actually move my neck again, I knew I had to do something. So I went and saged my entire house, top to bottom. It was February, and I still opened all the windows and saged inside drawers and inside the cabinets, everywhere. Since then, I've not seen a shadow figure. I've not seen anything out of the corner of my eyes. I've been very healthy since then. So accidentally let something in, but was able to get rid of
I
it.
don't know. I get like freaked out over your staircase, though.
Really?
Yeah. Like in the middle of the night when I have to go to the bathroom, I try to avoid looking up the stairs. And for some reason, I think I'm going to see your Viking costume just like standing there. Like, I don't know.
That's
like
that's happened to me. So, context. I have well, to be honest, it's an obsession with Vikings.
A little bit.
And so I have a
little obsession.
a authentic Viking costume that I made. I did all the leather working. I did all the sewing. I have animal hides on it. The only thing I didn't make on it is the chainmail, which I tried making, but it was just way too much tedious work, and I value my sanity too much. But I've put so much effort into this. I made a mannequin for it to be displayed on, so I have it in a room upstairs. Well, the day that I built that mannequin and put everything on it, and I had it up in that room upstairs, I was going to go upstairs for something else. And I had that door open, and the room's right on top of the steps, so you can see right into it. And the sun was setting, so it was shining in through that window. And I just saw the silhouette of a person. I freaked out, nearly fell down their steps, ran and grabbed a gun, and then it dawned on me, that's my mannequin. I felt like an idiot.
I'm always like, I don't know. I think it's just that knowledge that there is a human form there.
If it helps, I'll start shutting that door.
You might have to, because I always try to avoid looking that way, because I'm like, I don't want to see it. It scares me.
I'll keep those doors shut. So that's us in a nutshell.
I think we bored you long enough. Hopefully you'll return, whoever you may be.
Yes, our next episode will probably be our Gettysburg episode.
Which will be more organized.
Far more organized. So, we do have a website. It's emptycasketparanormal.com. There you'll get to see pictures of us and see a little bit about our equipment and our backgrounds. And we have a blog on there, which currently we have a 3-part blog about our Gettysburg trip. We also have a YouTube channel, Empty Casket Paranormal, and all of the video and audio that we captured at Gettysburg is currently up there, as well as a video clip that we put together for a audition for a ghost hunting show. Yeah. You don't have to watch that one.
No. If we sound awkward here, we're like 10 times more awkward on that. And of course, all of our future investigations and adventures will be posted on the website and on our YouTube channel, as well as here.
Right. We don't currently have an idea of how often we're going to put out episodes. I think last time we talked about it, we were saying every 2 to 3 weeks we'll try to get one out.
Yeah. With how our schedule is right now, it looks like maybe at least one a month.
Yeah, we'll definitely get one out one a month, and if we get more, we will get more.
If we get better at this and it takes off, then perhaps more. But
absolutely,
time will tell, and hopefully, we get some followers to hear our adventures.
And this is our very first attempt ever at doing anything like a podcast.
Yes.
So if you have any suggestions on a way for us to make the podcast better, please let us know. We're very open to constructive criticism.
Yeah, I just don't want to hear it.
Yeah, no, I'll be the one reading it and filtering it through to Tanya. But thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you for hearing us ramble a bit. Well, not a bit, a lot tonight, and getting to know Empty Casket and ourselves and our ideas for our podcast moving forward.
So, on that note, I guess we shall bid you a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Until next time.